Okay, so I'm here at First Cardio Studios with Paul Drake, who is my cardiovascular coach, among other things. It's he's taking care of a lot of everything that's heart related and recovery related. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about what Paul does and how he's a part of my team here in we're in Wisconsin right now. Paul is from Chicago, and so Paul, welcome.
Thank you, August, for spending time coming in, and it's always a pleasure to work with athletes like yourself.
Thank you. So yeah, I've been in Chicago for a few days now. We're doing some tests, VO2 max tests at Paul's place, and I work with Paul on a daily basis. He tracks my heart rate, and we use that to determine how intense my practices should be and how much I need to recover. And then we also use the data that Paul collects to determine different kinds of workouts in order to strengthen the cardiovascular system. And Paul, would you mind telling us a little bit about your background and how you got into working with cardiovascular training in tennis?
Right. My background formally comes from cycling. I used to race bicycles here in the U.S. and did some racing in Europe. Wasn't exactly the best cyclist on the planet, but it set the basis for understanding my true passion, which is cardiovascular conditioning and training and working with athletes. I love that element of it, and through 12 or 13 years of actual racing and various coaches and learning a lot, and then getting a master's degree in exercise science, I I sort of put some things together and started working with athletes, and it became very successful. And by fluke, I started working with tennis players. At the particular time, I was working on a Parkinson's project that shows physical activity delays Parkinson's, the onset of Parkinson's. And it was just by chance that the gentleman that I was working with had a daughter who played tennis at the University of South Carolina. He knew my credentials, and he suggested to the team that they should bring me in and do some testing to try and figure out what was going on with the team. And that was sort of the introduction. And in that particular season, the team went from roughly like 30th in the country to seventh overall in the country. And then that sort of opened the door into tennis, which was so far off my radar. I thought I would be working with cyclists, but I'm so grateful to be in a tennis community.
Yeah, and it's been really cool to see that all your suggestions for the training intensity and such is all data driven. And something that I'm really excited about is to have that data to not go off a feel. Because something that we found is that how I feel and what my mind is telling me isn't necessarily what the body is indicating. And just like working with tennis analytics and saying, okay, I get 65 whatever percent serves in play. This is kind of a way to look at the data for the body, and all that data is becoming more and more popular in all sports. And so I think that the more that I and players in general can work off of facts, the better that the potential for becoming is. Paul, would you mind, just the last question here? Would you mind telling us what's the driving force behind why you do what you do? What is it that you're hoping to accomplish with First Cardio? Because you've been talking a lot to me about this concept of education.
Right. So, first and foremost, the driving force behind it, really, what got me involved in really working with athletes is because I really wasn't that great of an athlete, but I had taken my body to the absolute limits that I knew. So I always was wondering, well, what could I have done or what should I have done? And did I do something wrong? So going back and getting further education was really more of a self interest. I did not realize the potential I had to work with athletes and sort of essentially show them what I did that was wrong so they could avoid doing it. And I was doing an internship and I wound up working with DePaul University cycling team, and It was just a fluke how I got involved with them, and we went from 45th in the conference to third in one season, and we were winning everything. It was absolutely amazing, and we had no budget, no technology, nothing to work with. We were doing everything with heart rate, and so that was sort of the driving force in getting the the personal education. But as I started working with athletes, I realized that part of what I do and the majority of the work revolves around educating the athlete. My goal is not to keep athletes. My goal is to educate them to a point to where they can do a lot of this themselves and make their own assessments on their own bodies. That's the goal. I'm not really concerned about keeping an athlete because of a business scenario. I'm more concerned about working with an athlete, educating them, getting them to a certain point where they can make their own decisions. Because I always know that there's going to be more athletes coming up that want that information.
Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you for being wanting to talk to me about this and spreading, helping spread what a professional setup could look like.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.